Hi, and welcome to my last class, number 8, on how I strengthened my immune system after cancer. This class is a long time coming, and I apologize that it took so long. I did actually do the class a while ago with Cassetta, but I don't know what happened. We had some technical difficulties, and the sound did not come through. So I am doing this on my phone this time, and hopefully it will work much better. So this class is actually about what I did during my recovery of cancer. And as you may already know, I had breast cancer in 2004, and it was stage 2. I had the tumor removed and biopsied, and that's how they found out that it was cancer. So I just want to go through a few things. And first, I should introduce myself for anybody who is just coming on to this video and doesn't know me or hasn't watched any of the other videos. My name is Lisa Small, and I am doing these videos in an effort to hopefully bring some awareness to how I recovered from cancer, which is not conventional. It goes against the grain, so to speak. But there's a lot of information out there. Actually, there was more in the last, when I first started doing all this research in 2005, there was more actually on the internet than there is now. So I can definitely tell the difference when I go to look things up. I can't find a lot of holistic and natural medicine or doctors like I used to be able to. And so I'm glad that I was able to do all of that research when it was available. Books are still available, of course. I've read, books and had a lot of resources that I used, and those are still available. So I actually woke up this morning and I was congested and my throat was a little scratchy, so I actually have been taking a lot of my ASEA today. I took my magnesium. I took my special smoothie that has unbelievable amounts of nutrients in it, and it's actually getting better, even though it might not sound it. Excuse me. So it could be allergies. I don't know what it is. I feel fine, just tired because I was up. I've been getting up very early. So I've been up for quite a while. So my day is going to end early today. Anyway, excuse me again, I would like to just go over, I wrote down about 21 things that I did to recover from cancer. Of course, there was many more things, but this is just giving an idea of some of the things that I did instead of getting chemo and radiation treatment. Sorry, this is my my green tea with raw honey. Of course, I just said that I had the tumor removed, so I had surgery. I had the first surgery where they just took the tumor out and they biopsied it, found that it was cancerous. Then I went, and by the way, just to mention that I opted not to get the needle biopsy because I had read long time before that in a magazine, I don't know what magazine, but there was a magazine I was reading, probably in a doctor's office somewhere, that if you do a needle biopsy, not just for breast cancer, I guess for any kind of cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, or whatever kind of cancer, but if you do that biopsy through a needle, it's possible that on the tip of the needle, when they're pulling it out, there could be some cancer cells that could get into your tissue or muscle as they're pulling it out, and it can spread. So though the surgeon that I went to back in 2004 did not confirm that, she also didn't deny it when I asked her about that, because she suggested that I get the needle biopsy. And when I asked her about that, all she said was, you know what, maybe the needle biopsy isn't for you. Maybe we'll just do the, what do they call that? Taking the tumor out. So that's what we did. Then 3 weeks later, they went in and they redid the surgery, but this time they just took the margins and made sure that there was no cancer that spread. They also took out some lymph nodes, and that would be like right around there. They took some lymph nodes out to make sure it didn't spread even further than the margins, and it didn't. So my cancer did not spread. So I then had meetings with doctors about the treatment and what we were going to do, and they said because of my age, I was 38. Now, I had never had a mammogram before, because you didn't get a mammogram unless there was some history in your family. You only got a mammogram when you were 40 and over. So I hadn't had any mammograms before, and up to that point, I faithfully went to the gynecologist. I faithfully went to the doctors. I was always at the doctors because I was always sick. There was always something. I either had to get blood work for my thyroid done. I had issues with allergies all the time, throat infections, sinus infections. I had back problems. I had back surgery in '94. So there was always something going on that was wrong. My body was just deteriorating, literally deteriorating. And then when I had the cancer, it just, that's a sign that my body had given up. So cancer won the war. And my body, it's like, okay, so say you have an army, and that army is fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and they never have time to rest, recuperate, eat well, hydrate themselves, and they keep going and going and going. And then they get sneak attacked, and the other side comes, and they're all refreshed and they're all great. And the army that is just dragged down, and so they can't go anymore, they get attacked and they can't fight back. And that's how cancer works. So it's an immune system problem. It's not a tumor problem. It's not a breast problem. It's not a liver problem. It's an immune system problem. Where you get the cancer, there's a lot of factors that determine that. I'm not even going to get into that. But in my case, and in a lot of people's cases, mostly women, men also get breast cancer, but mostly women, in my case, the cancer wound up in my breast. Why? I don't know. I mean, I don't think we'll ever really know why certain people get certain kinds of cancer. So all we know is that it's an immune system problem. Now, will a medical doctor understand that or admit that or come to terms with that? I don't know. Some will. There's many more doctors now, I can say, today that are looking into why so many people are sick, looking at the immune system in a different way now, looking at medication in a different way, and looking at diet and exercise and how we live our lives, how we handle stress. They're looking at that more. And those doctors, unfortunately, are being blacklisted, and they are being criticized. They are, they still have their medical license, but their peers, their colleagues, they're just not having it. And they don't want to give up, the whole medicine thing. And doctors do have to be very careful because they only have a license to practice what they were taught, which is conventional medicine. They can't go outside of that scope of expertise. But there are many doctors that are going for certifications in holistic medicine. My chiropractor is not a medical doctor, but he's a doctor of chiropractic. So he's a doctor, and by the way, he's my family doctor. And whenever I have a problem, it's not just a back problem that I might have, or my neck hurts or something. It's if I have, when I had sinus infections, I've had 2 or 3 sinus infections since I had the cancer, since 2004, or 2005, I'll say. I've only had 3. Before, I was having one after the other every single year. So that tells you something right there. And the times that I had the sinus infections were when I went to work in an office, in a corporation, where their windows did not open, and where I remember through the vents on the floor, smoke would be coming up. They would be testing the heater and the systems, and this diesel fuel smell or whatever it was came up from the vents into our building. And I remember thinking, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get sick because I'm stuck in this building all day. And back then we were doing a lot of overtime. So I was there for, quite an amount of hours in the day. And I did. So I got sick the first year I was there, the second year I was there, and I think the third. I'm not really sure if it was 2 or 3 times, but it was at least twice, and it was while I was working at this mortgage company. So, so there's a lot to be said for working in an office building that has no windows that can open, and where they do things like that, where they're testing the systems, and that those smells or odors, gases, whatever is coming up is not healthy. It's just not healthy for us. So anyway, so these doctors and my chiropractor, when I would get a sinus infection, I actually went to my chiropractor. I didn't go to the doctors. I never took any antibiotics for the sinus infections after the cancer. So post-cancer, I have not been on any prescription drugs except for when I had the chemo and I was very, very sick. So I had 3 or 4 medications that I was taking, and I took all of them because one made you sick. The chemo made you sick, and then there was another medication that would help that. And then there was another medication because that would affect your stomach. And then the other medication was for the other medication. It was just a snowball effect. And I've never been so sick in my life. I was so sick at that time. So anyway, I went to my chiropractor. And what he did when I had my sinus infection was he adjusted my atlas. That is a major adjustment. And it was sore. My neck was sore for about 3 days afterwards. But guess what? My sinus infection started going away. And it went away. And I was over it. So he did that the times that I had the sinus infections. It's been a long time since I've had a sinus infection now. I haven't worked in the office since 2013, I think, around, or 12. So I haven't needed that kind of adjustment other than, I think, when I had my sinus infections. So I honestly never knew that you could not take antibiotics when you had a sinus infection. I just automatically assumed you had to because it was an infection, and we needed the antibiotics to get rid of the infection. I had no idea that your body can fight off an infection. That is how ignorant I was. I had no idea. Of course, once I started after the cancer and I started doing all this research and I learned so much, it just all makes sense. So cancer is the same way. You get cancer because your body, your immune system is compromised. It's weak. It can't fight back anymore. And it allows the cancer cells multiply very, very quickly. So they multiply so quickly that when your immune system is weak, it can't fight it off fast enough. When your immune system is working properly, your immune system can fight that off. It can fight off the cold, it can fight off infections, it can fight off everything. So that's why it's so important to strengthen your immune system when you're sick, not tear it down with chemo and radiation. Because when you tear your immune system down and you take away all of your defenses, because that's what chemo does, it takes away all of your defenses because it doesn't know how to distinguish between the good cells and the bad cells. And when it doesn't know how to distinguish between the good and the bad, it just takes them all. So it kills everything. And that leaves you very, very vulnerable. So that's why after I had chemo, I was told that I couldn't have salad. I couldn't have any fruit or vegetable raw that couldn't be peeled. So I couldn't have an apple unless I peeled it. I could have a banana because you peel that. But I couldn't have lettuce. I couldn't have any kinds of greens raw. If they were cooked, that was fine. So anything cooked was fine, but nothing raw for the first, I don't know how many days, 2 or 3 days after the chemo, because my immune system, it could have killed me. That is how dangerous it can become. Now, I didn't understand all of this when my oncologist told me not to eat. All I knew was I wasn't allowed to eat that stuff for a couple of days after chemo. That's really all I knew. I didn't know that it could kill me. I didn't know that it was very dangerous, other than she just said, you just can't have it. And so that's just giving you an idea of how dangerous chemo and radiation is. It's nothing to just mess around with. And the fact that medicine, conventional medicine, wants to kill your immune system because it doesn't know how to do anything else. Conventional medicine does not understand or does not work in the way that holistic doctors understand. Holistic doctors understand that a healthy and strong immune system is going to keep a body healthy. It's going to fight off infections, disease, and all of that. So that's not to say that we don't need doctors or nurses or hospitals or medicine, because we do. We have car accidents. We have all kinds of accidents, occupational accidents. So there's, somebody could fall down their steps. So there's so many things that can happen that we need doctors for. And so there's definitely, we need medical doctors. And I'm not tearing them down or anything, but they only know what they're taught. And I've said this in my other videos. They're taught a certain curriculum, and if you look into the history of conventional medicine, make sure you look up Rockefeller, because the Rockefeller family, they played a huge part in the curriculum of conventional medicine and also in destroying the holistic medicine protocol. They wanted nothing to do with that, and they still don't. And so now we have doctors who laugh at that, who laugh at holistic when conventional medicine has only been around for, what, I don't know, 150 years, 200 maybe? And holistic medicine has been around forever. And yet we're told that it's quackery. And there's a whole bunch of history that goes into the vaccines and about pasteurization. You know, they want us to believe that, you know, for instance, raw milk or raw cheese is dangerous. Oh, you can't have that because that'll kill you. That has bacteria in it that can kill us. Well, what did people do before pasteurization in the 1800s was discovered? And then in the 1900s, when all the milk started being pasteurized. So what did they do for thousands and thousands of years before that? They drank milk right from the cow, or right from the sheep, or right from the goat, or the camel, or wherever it came from. So there was no pasteurization process, but what they did was they made sure that the animals were clean, that they were taken care of well, that the animals were not sick. If they were, you know, the ones that were very conscious of keeping their animals clean and healthy so that they could produce healthy meats, healthy drinks, healthy milk, they would make sure that the conditions that those animals were living in were top priority because they understood the importance of that. Sanitation was a problem in the 1800s, and a lot of people, more so the lower income, poverty-stricken people, they were the ones that were getting sick, that were dying of disease. Not saying that wealthy people didn't too, they did too, but it was more so the lower income people. And what was happening is the bad sanitation was getting into the water. They were drinking the water. They also, conventional medicine back then was new, so they didn't really understand about sterilization, making sure when they do surgery or anything like that, that everything had to be sterilized. Or, you cut somebody open with this scalpel, you can't use it on somebody else. That can pass on germs, drinking from the same cups if you're sick, things like that. They didn't understand all that back then. And so that's why so many people got sick, why a lot of it spread. So anyway, that's just a little history lesson. Things that you can look up for yourself and dig. You have to dig to get this information, because if you don't dig, you'll never find it. But you can go on to PubMed, you can go on to the CDC, the National Institute of Health, the NIH. There are plenty of documents and studies that you will find and be surprised that are out there, because a lot of the stuff nobody looks up, and that's what they count on. They count on regular people like us not looking anything up and not knowing anything, so that they can put in our minds through news media, through the TV, through radio, movies, music, everything. So they want to program us to believe what they want us to believe. It's not just with medicine, it's with everything. So I'm going to leave that part right there. So, okay, so I had the second surgery. Then I got one chemo treatment. I lost all my hair. I was very sick. Then I watched Dr. Lorraine Day videos that my mom bought me. My mom had no idea what she was doing, and I'm wondering if she even thought that I would look at the videos knowing that I was against all of that. I just thought it was ridiculous, holistic medicine. And, if you would have said anything to me about not vaccinating children or not getting a vaccination, I would have thought you were crazy. So that's another thing about me. I did not believe all this stuff. I learned it, and I was learning it with my mouth open, like my jaw dropped when I started hearing it. I was ready to hear it. You may not be ready to hear this now, but there may come a day when you are. So, you may want to re-listen to some of my videos. So I was that person, and you may be that person, who said, okay, doctor, whatever you say, doctor, I will do everything you tell me to do. And that's what I did, especially when it came to my daughter. When my daughter was born, I wouldn't even listen to my mom. My mom had 7 children. But I just figured, well, times have changed. So what my mom knew and what I knew were just two different things. So I just figured that I needed to find out from the doctor. So every morning, I think Monday through Friday, Dr. Pollack, who was my daughter's pediatrician, who loved him, he was great. Every morning he would have talk time. I don't know if it was from 7 to 8 or 8 to 9, and I frequently called, even to ask about stupid things, because I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing. And I believed that the doctors knew everything. I never even imagined that they wouldn't have an answer for me. Of course, that irked my mom, because my mom felt like, I raised 7 kids. What do you think? I don't know what I'm talking about? But it wasn't that. It was just, I just figured times have changed, things were different, and some things my mom didn't agree with our pediatrician on. So I thought it was best to just listen to the pediatrician. So every move I made was pediatrician approved. And for myself, if I missed like a pill or anything like that, I was like, oh no, the skies are going to fall because I missed a pill. Oh my gosh. I would even call my doctor and tell them. And they would be like, oh, it's okay. Don't worry. Just take the next scheduled pill. Nothing bad's going to happen. So, but that's how I was. I was very in tune with medicine, and everything was medicine. And the funny thing is, I was always sick. So, there you have it. Okay, so, some of the other things that I started doing, I was watching Dr. Day's videos. Dr. Day became aware of God more so than usual, she said in her videos, while she was researching everything. And she learned a lot and realized that God is the one that we need to go to, because he's the one that created us. And if you want to know about a car, you go to the place that created the car, right? Well, it's the same with our bodies. God created our bodies, and he's the best one to go to for information, for wisdom, for knowledge, for reassurance, and everything that we need. For everything, not just for our bodies, but for everything in life. He sent his Spirit. Jesus said he will not leave us as orphans, but that when he left, he would send the counselor, who is the Holy Spirit, to guide us into all truth. And he meant all truth, everything. So anything that we need in life, all we need to do is trust him and go to him and his word. Reading scripture is mind-blowing. I remember years and years ago when I started reading scripture myself, I felt like I was being hit with a ton of bricks. It was unbelievable. And so many things came together in my head that helped me to understand things better when I was reading scripture. Now, I had tried to read scripture probably years before that, and I felt like I don't even know what I'm reading. And when you read the same thing over and over again, you still can't, it's still not absorbing. Well, that's how I was. I couldn't absorb it. I couldn't understand it. I was blind. I had scales on my eyes. I had a veil, but God lifted that veil because I wanted to know him. I wanted to know his truth. And that's why he lifted the veil. And only he can do that. I don't care how much college education you have, or a divinity degree, or what kind of scholar you are. If you don't have God's Spirit in you to give you the eyes to see God's truth, you will never know it. And you won't be able to know who God is. And you won't have a relationship with him. So it's only by Jesus giving us his Spirit that we are born again. And Jesus says that you must be born again to enter the kingdom of God. So through all of this, I did pray before that, but my prayers were different. I also just figured, well, my doctor tells me I need to get the tumor removed. I need to get another surgery for the margins and the lymph nodes. And then I need to get chemo and radiation. And then I need to get a double mastectomy. And then, if I want, I can get reconstructive surgery. That was the plan. That was what I was planning to do. That's what they suggested. So I didn't really do any of that other than the first three things, which was the 2 surgeries and 1 chemo treatment. So the praying, I did pray, but my prayers were different. This second time around, when I was watching the videos, my prayers were, Lord, teach me what I don't know. There's so much out there. There was a whole new world that opened up to me, and I had no idea it was there. And even if I did have a clue, because my daughter, when she was a teenager, worked at Martindale's health food store, now it's Martindale's Natural Foods in Springfield. She used to work there. She used to come home. She used to tell me things that she was learning. I was not interested. I didn't care. She told me, we need to eat organic food. Mom, look at this product. Look at this. This is healthy. This is good. We don't need that. We're fine. We've been eating the way we've been eating forever. We're fine. We don't need it. That was my attitude. And then I get the cancer. So, my prayers were a whole lot different, and they meant a lot more. And I was in the learning stage. I was beginning, like a baby, was beginning how to walk. That's what it was like. I had no foundation of understanding of what I was about to venture into. So I stopped the conventional treatment. So I had to tell my doctors that I was no longer going to get chemo, and I was not getting radiation, and I was not getting any mastectomies. or reconstructive surgery. So that is what happened. I told them. And I think I mentioned in other previous videos, and I'm not going to go into it now, but I think I mentioned what happened and what was said to me and how I was treated. I took time off from work because Dr. Day does tell you it's basically a full-time job. When you're recovering in a holistic way, there's really no time to work. So I know for people who don't have someone else to care for them or help them financially, it really would be great if there was some kind of a way that, single people or single parents would be able to do something like that and have other people gather around them and help them. It would be really great to see that, because I completely understand. I was very fortunate that my husband was the main breadwinner, so I was able to do that. I cleaned out my pantry and the fridge. I threw pretty much everything away that I had, and I went food shopping, and I replaced everything. Some stuff I didn't replace because it was just bad for you, and there is no organic bad stuff of certain things. So I restocked my pantry and my fridge with healthy foods and products, and not a whole lot of, like, hardly any cans or fruit. Like, I didn't do any. The only frozen vegetables I bought, and I bought some frozen fruit, which is fine. Frozen, is good, but it was all organic. But the only frozen vegetables I buy are corn, peas, and lima beans. That's pretty much it. Everything else is fresh. All of our other vegetables. No canned vegetables. The only cans I'll use tuna fish, but I only have that once in a while. I don't have that often because of the mercury content in tuna fish. I also use canned beans, and sometimes I'll use dry beans too, but I have cans on hand. And I also use canned tomatoes for when I make my Italian gravy and meatballs. And, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and coconut milk. I use coconut milk. So those are pretty much the only cans that I have that I use. So I did that. I also did a lot of research and studying and experimenting on myself and on other people. Nothing major, nothing that was dangerous or, going to kill anybody or anything like that. Because when you say experiment, it sounds dangerous. Not the experiments that I was doing. So I did a lot of that and researched about health and wellness, strengthening my immune system, strengthening my faith, exercising, and getting sunshine. Sunshine is very important, and that was something that I didn't realize. But we get our vitamin D from the sun, and it's very important to get our vitamin D from the sun and not just from supplements. So 10 minutes a day in the sun is not going to give you cancer. So everybody that goes out in the sun, and before they even go out in the sun, they're lathering up with all this sunscreen that, the UVB rays that are good are not going. I don't know if it's, I don't remember which ones are the good rays, but whatever they are, if you're putting sunscreen on, they're not getting through. Plus, that sunscreen has chemicals in it, and your skin is the largest organ of your body. That's absorbing and going into your bloodstream all of those chemicals, especially when you're out in the sun and your pores are open And the pores are just absorbing all of those chemicals. So if you are going to use sunscreen, make sure that they have no harmful chemicals. I'll try to remember to post a couple products that are, pretty good. You can also make it. There's recipes out there, and from what I've heard and read, I haven't done it yet, but from what I've heard, they're pretty good. I don't use sunscreen, but I do, I stay in the sun for a little bit, but I then will sit under an umbrella and try not to, I don't want to get burned. You don't want to get burned and, burn your skin to a crisp or have it peel. And I have had that happen, but I try to be careful not to do that. And there are times when I have used sunscreen because I was going to be out in the sun too long and I didn't want to get burned, but I used natural kinds that did not have harmful chemicals. So that's very important, especially for children, and especially even for teenagers when they're going through their puberty and they're already, having issues just from going through changing, their body's changing. Then you have all these chemicals going in, and it's just not good. So try to be careful with that. And also, I just continued to go to my chiropractor. I didn't change anything about that. I sought out the stores that I needed to go to, food stores, to get all of my supplies. So I got 35-pound bags of carrots. I would go to Martindale's. I went to Whole Foods, but I think it was called Fresh Foods back then. I forget what it was called. But then it turned to Whole Foods, so I was going there. Giant started having some organic stuff. And I mentioned Martindale. So, and there was another store, a co-op called Celine's in Media, so I went there. And then I also joined a co-op with a farmer. It was called Friendly Farm, and they had a co-op. So there was a bunch of farmers that got together, and they took our order every week, and then they would deliver to a drop-off point, and then we would go get our food. So that was all raw dairy. It was organic, but it wasn't all certified. It was grass-fed meats and no antibiotic chickens and farm-raised. They were really in, the grass. They really were, and we went to visit the farms. So we know for sure that these farms were what they said they were. The eggs, these chickens, they ate bugs from the grass. They were on the grass. They had their natural habitat, their natural diet. Same with the cows and, the pigs and everything. Although we really don't eat pork anymore. Not that we don't at all. We have, but we don't really eat a whole lot of pork. And the reason for that is that I read that it's not as clean of a meat as it could be or should be, and not as good for us. It has more toxins in it, or it holds more toxins, something like that. You might want to do your own research, but like I said, there are times that we do eat it, but it's very rare. The other thing I did was I bought a juicer. I did a lot of research on juicers and which one to get. Of course, they have anywhere from cheap to very expensive. So you could pay, I think it's called the Norwalk juicer. That's like the mega juicer. I couldn't even afford it. At the time, I think it was $2,000. There was no way I was getting that. Mine was $200 or $220 or something. It's a Champion juicer. I still have it. It still works great. So, bought my juicer. I also bought new cookware. I bought Le Creuset, and that is cast iron with ceramic on top. And I still have it after all these years. I still use it. The only thing is with that, it's very heavy. And I remember thinking back then, if I still have this when I'm getting older, I don't know how I'm going to lift it because it's heavy. I mean, it was heavy then when I was 38 or 39. Now I'm older and it's still heavy. So, sad that we don't get stronger with age, right? But yeah, so, I also have stainless steel, the 1810 stainless steel. So I do have that as well, and I use that as well. I also have cast iron. I have about like 3 cast iron pans. So I interchange them, so I use a lot of that stuff. I use no nonstick pots and pans. And I also use stones from Pampered Chef. I know there's other brands out there. It doesn't matter what you use, as long as you know that it's, there's no chemicals or anything. But I love my stones. I have a ton of them. I've been using them for years and years, probably 30, I'm going to say 30 years, maybe. And some of them I have from way, way back. So sometimes you can find them in a thrift store, and they're brand new sometimes. Like I found numerous ones in thrift stores for $5, where you go on to Pampered Chef and you're going to pay, anything upwards from $35. So they're expensive. They're not cheap, but once you have them, if you take care of them, then they'll last for a long time, and there's nothing like them. I love my stones. I use those a lot when I'm baking in the oven or cooking something in the oven. I use them a lot, and especially my cupcakes and muffins. I have my muffin pan that is stone. I have 2 of them, and that's all I use. I can't use the metal ones because they don't work. They burn everything on the bottom. So anyway, I did that. I changed my diet. I got rid of coffee, which I sometimes drink. I don't make it at home, but sometimes I do like to go out and have coffee. And I don't like it black, so it is a treat for me, which it's not really actually a treat because it's not healthy, but it does have sugar in it, so I'll get the least amount of sugar I can put up with. But I don't know. There's something about having coffee out that appeals to me, and I don't know why. But it's not something that I do every day. It's not something that, I don't have to have it. That's the other thing. It's not like I go and I think, oh, I need to have coffee. I need something to pep me up. I don't drink coffee for that reason, and I don't need it. So I did a vegan diet for 6 months. So that was the main thing that I did. Vegan diet for 6 months, and I also had my meals were 2/3 raw. So 2/3 of my meals were not cooked, fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, that kind of thing. And then usually I would do that for breakfast and lunch, and then for dinner I would have a cooked meal. So I would have 1 cooked meal a day, and it didn't really matter which meal it was. So I had that. Then I also juiced, and drank a lot of water. So I had about 10 to 12 vegetable juices every day, usually 4 green juices, and the rest, 8 of them were carrot, or 6 to 8 of them were carrot and apple juice. So that's what I did. I did detoxes. I did a whole body detox. I talked about that. I'm not going to talk about that again. But before you ever do any kind of detox, make sure your bowels are working properly. And by properly, I mean ultimately you should be eliminating 20 to 30 minutes after every major meal. So if you eat a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you should be eliminating 20 to 30 minutes after each of those meals. If you're not, twice a day, okay, that's fine. Once a day, that's kind of where I am still. It's, I've had some issues, but, there are times where I am able to go more than once a day. So that's really good for me because I was really bad at one point where I wasn't eliminating for a week at a time or 5 days. And that was just, my doctor said, oh, that's just normal for you. That's not normal for anybody. That's dangerous for everybody. So, so don't let your doctor talk you into that's normal for you. As much, I have to say, I don't want to say it like this, but at least if you're going a good bowel movement once a day, you have to eliminate at least at the very minimum once a day. Like I said, ultimate is 3, best is, better is 2, but if it's once a day and that's all you can get. And also I have, where did I put it? I just so happened to get this in the mail. This is Dr. Schultz. I don't know if it's coming out right on here, but this is his flyer that he sends out. Sometimes I get a little booklet. His website is called herbdoc.com, and he has Formula 1 and Formula 2, which together constitutes a bowel cleanse, which I've done a number of times, a couple of times. And the Formula 1 is something that you can take on a regular basis if you need to. It's not a laxative. It's not addictive. It's just organic and wildly harvested herbs. And so your body doesn't get addicted to them. I don't tend to need them as much anymore, but there are times when I always keep them on hand just in case. There are times when I need it, so I have them when I need them. But he has like a botanical pharmacy. That's what he has. He's out in California. He is a holistic doctor. He used to have patients, but they human patients. He doesn't, not the other kind of patients. He has had patients and had very good results with his patients, but he got shut down by the government because, probably because he was doing things too good, and they didn't like that, and that's what they do to a lot of these holistic doctors. And that's not conspiracy theory, because Dr. Day, Dr. Lorraine Day, was an orthopedic surgeon, and she taught medical students. She was, a head doctor, I think, at Loma Linda University. And so, or Loma Linda Hospital, I'm not sure, out in California. So she was full-blown into medicine and started questioning things during the AIDS epidemic and wrote a book. And they didn't like her. They didn't like that. She got threatened. Her life was threatened. Then she got the cancer. She didn't want cancer because she said, I know what chemo and radiation does to people, and I don't want to die, and I don't want that. So that was a long time ago. I'm going to say at least 30 years ago. And she's still alive and well. She's in her 80s. She's still doing interviews. She looks great. She's very healthy. Now, she's still vegan. She was vegetarian most of her life, so going vegan for her was not a big deal. For her, she said, vegetarian and vegan doesn't necessarily mean healthy, because sugar is not, it's not meat and it's not dairy, so you can have it in a vegan and vegetarian diet. So she said she had a lot of caffeine because she was a doctor. She had a lot of sugar, and, she wasn't healthy. And it wasn't until after she got breast cancer herself that she started doing her research, and she has her license, continues to have her medical license, but does not practice medicine. But she does run a business, and her website is drday.com. If you want to look her up, she has videos, she has books, she has a lot of information out there. I don't necessarily agree with everything, biblically that she believes in, but she's entitled to what she believes. So I leave it at that. There's a lot of things that I do agree with her on, biblically and spiritually, and she's right on the money. And, I'm not saying that she's wrong or that I'm right about what I think biblically. Not biblically. I shouldn't say biblically. I should say in a worldview, because she may have seen a lot more than I have. She says that she has a lot of documents that that's been handed over to her, and trying to help her. Of course, you'll have to do your own research, and it's very interesting to hear her. She's not crazy. She is a very, very intelligent woman, and I really like her because she doesn't pull any punches, and she doesn't mince any words, and she does say that she has something to offend everyone. And if you're offended with anything that I say or anything she says or anybody says, sometimes we have to look at that as our problem. If we're offended by something, ask ourselves, why did that bother me so much? Is what they said true? Does it have any truth to it? And then what I do is I go pray about it, and I ask God to show me, is there any truth in what they said? Because if there is, I don't want that junk in me. So help me to get it out. Help me to see it so I don't have to continue to be offended or, think a certain way or whatever it is. So anyway, so the other things that I did a bowel cleanse, like I said, with Dr. Schultz. I also did a liver and gallbladder cleanse with Dr. Schultz products. I also did a mental detox. Stopped watching TV and the news, and that was a mind blower when I stopped doing all of that, because I learned there was a time when Rich happened to put the news on, and this was a long time after we weren't watching it, and I was so sensitive to it that I couldn't listen to it anymore. It was, my stomach was upset. I was just so upset. Physically, my body was reacting to murder in Philadelphia. This happened. This, all these crazy things were happening. I know that these things happen. I don't need to put it in my mind all the time. I know there's evil out there. I know there's bad things out there. I mean, we read in the Bible about all these things. We're not immune to evil happening around us and to us. So I see enough of it that I don't need to deliberately put myself in front of the TV and watch it, because that is just not a good place to be. And what I learned is how desensitized we were, Rich and I, to all of that. Because I used to be able to watch it and it was no big deal. But then after I didn't for a long time, went back to it, it was awful. And that's not being overly sensitive. That's the way we should be. We should not be desensitized to murders and killings and children being, killed by their parents or raped or molested or any. We should not be desensitized to stuff like that. But at the same time, we don't want to immerse ourselves in that type of atmosphere because we want to set our hearts and minds on things above, not on earthly things. That's right from Colossians 3. And that has helped me over the years so much to remind myself and to remind others, if need be, that that's where we need to set our hearts and minds on the Lord above. Because we know there's going to be things in this world. There's evil. There's definitely evil. We see it. So, and I'm going to get into, in other videos that are going to be coming up, I'll just give you a little bit of what I've been learning. And these things are not things that I go searching for. I don't even know. I might just be on the internet reading something, and I see some words that I'm not familiar with, and I look it up, and it takes me into a whole other realm of research on a whole other subject that I didn't know before, and it's just endless. It is endless. I just learned about the vagus nerve. My daughter told me about it, and her friend told her about it, apparently. So, because I just had a conversation with her friend, and she was telling me about it, and I said, I never heard about that before all these years. And I sent it to my cousin, and he never heard of it before either, and he's done a lot of research. So anyway, so the other thing that so what I was going to get to, so these new videos that I'm going to be putting out they're personal. They're going to be very personal but it's very common, about scapegoating, gaslighting, and narcissism. I didn't set out to look these things up. I didn't set out to research them or do videos on them, but I think I've heard of the word narcissist, because somebody that I know was telling me about her mom, and her mom was a narcissist, and she did all this research, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds so familiar to me. So years later, I heard something else, and I started doing research on that. And little did I know that scapegoating, gaslighting, narcissism, they're all connected. And there's so much I'm learning about my childhood, my growing up, my family, unfortunately. But it's common. It's something, it's like a human nature thing, that if we don't, and I used to tell my mom this, if we don't correct ourselves when we're young, we're not just automatically going to correct ourselves because we're an adult or because we get wiser with age. We don't get wiser with age. You know, if we don't have the Lord and we're getting older, we become foolish with age. And that is the truth. And I have seen it over and over and over again. And it's very sad. So I just want to put that little bit in there and for what's coming up. But let me go back to this. So I also changed my bedtime habits. I need to get back to that because I kind of got out of it. But I, was going to bed at 10 o'clock every night. While I was recovering, I didn't go, sorry about that, phone fell. I didn't go to any functions, family functions, weddings, whatever there was, I didn't go to it because I wanted to strengthen my immune system. When I did start going to functions, I brought my own food. I started doing that because at the time I felt like I didn't want to deviate. If I got a taste of the other food, I just felt like it was too tempting to go back to it, and I didn't want to fall off the wagon. So I would bring my own food. I was criticized for that. I don't understand why. I was only just trying to heal my body, and it wasn't to be offensive to anyone. So if you're watching this and you were offended and you were there at these times, I ask for your forgiveness. I'm sorry. It wasn't for me. It wasn't meant to offend anyone. I never felt like I was, I think I heard that some people thought I was better than them. Had nothing in the world to do with that. I was so afraid I was going to contaminate my body and get cancer again at that time, because this was all so new to me. I didn't know what to expect. So that's why I lived in prayer so much. Anytime fear came on me, I had to go to the Lord and pray and get that fear out and trust Him. Because fear did come into play. I was fearful. I didn't want to go back to my old life. I didn't want to get the cancer again. So, it had nothing to do with anybody else. It was just what I needed to do. So I started feeling and seeing my body healing. It was definitely healing, especially with the juicing. The juicing just made such a huge difference. So after a year I had of, eating healthy and strengthening my immune system, my thyroid healed. And I'd been on Synthroid for 11 years before that. I had hypothyroidism, so I haven't been on that since 2005, probably September of 2005. So it's going on 17 years that I haven't been on Synthroid. And I was told that my thyroid would never heal. Conventional medicine tells you if you have hypothyroid, you're on the medicine for the rest of your life. Your thyroid will continue to get worse. Your medicine dose will increase with age, and that's just the way it is. There is no cure. Well, they're wrong. There is. There is a cure for disease, including hypothyroidism. Because how do you explain my thyroid healing? I didn't do anything specifically. I changed my diet, and I did a lot of research on coconut oil, and I incorporated coconut oil into my diet. So I do believe that was a big deal. I took 2 tablespoons of coconut oil a day in case anybody's interested. When my body didn't want any more coconut oil, it told me, because I would get sick in my stomach. And I didn't know why that was happening. And I just figured, I wonder if my body just doesn't need it anymore. And then later on, at some point, I read that that's what happens. Your body rejects it. And that's the form of rejection, is getting an upset stomach. So the way that God created our bodies is amazing. And if we just learned to know our bodies and listen to our bodies, we would be in so much better shape and in so much better health. So I also started incorporating meats and dairy back into our diet, but I tried to get locally sourced products. I tried to get grass-fed. Well, I did. I didn't try. I did. Grass-fed, everything was, pretty much organic. It didn't have to be certified organic. If I knew that it was fruits and vegetables from organic seed, and it wasn't sprayed, that was good enough for me. I didn't have to have certified. If the meat was from grass-fed cattle, that the grass wasn't sprayed, that was fine for me too. So I wasn't, stuck on all, certified organic. Yeah, certified organic is great, but nothing is foolproof. So that's another story. I think I went into some of that. And learning about my body and understanding it and listening to it, that was huge. And so when you get to know your body, when you understand how God created us how God made the immune system. You don't have to take a science course. You don't have to take a biology course. You don't have to take an anatomy course. You just have to understand there are certain things with the immune system. Well, there's a lot that goes into it. I don't know a lot of technical stuff, but I know the meat and potatoes of it, and it makes sense. And see, God doesn't do things that don't make sense. Everything he does has a reason and a purpose. And for any doctor to tell you, you don't need your tonsils, you don't need your spleen, you don't need your appendix, that's not true. God put those there for a reason. Can you live without them? Or a kidney? You know, you can live with one kidney. Yeah, that's possible, but there could be all sorts of issues because of those, you know, your gallbladder. So many people get their gallbladder out. And I know when it gets to a point where it's, you know, near the end, it's so diseased, sometimes that's all you can do. Or take medicine or strong drugs, whatever. Treatments. I get that. Just like me with the breast cancer. I went in that direction, but I had to get the tumor. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to. I got the tumor removed. So we get to a point where we may have to do something that we don't really want to do, but we've gotten to that point, and sometimes it's necessary, I guess, but not always. If it's a life or death situation, or you're in terrible pain, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You know, but you don't always have to do that. And if you are in a situation where you're pretty healthy, you know, now is the time to start continuing that, learning, taking care of your body, figuring out what am I really putting in my body? What am I putting on my body? That's another whole thing. I changed. I didn't even write that down, but 22 things that I did. I started making all my own, like, facial products. 23 things. There's another thing. I started making my own deodorant, skincare products. I just realized how important it was what we put on our bodies as much as what goes into our bodies. So I also looked into supplements, and I realized there were certain supplements that were really good, and I started taking those. Now, I'm not really always great with taking them on a daily basis. I need to get better at that, but I know what to do when I start feeling out of sorts. I know where I can go right to the remedy for me, and it works. And so I don't get sick, hardly ever get sick. I hardly ever, like, not feel good. I might be tired at times because I overdo it a lot of times. I'll just go and go and go and go, and then I wonder why I can't move, or I'm just so tired. But that's just normal. And I'm getting older. I'm 56. I'll be 57 soon. So it's just the way it is. I also take ASEA, which I've mentioned in my other videos. And ASEA is, it's just a wonderful supplement that I've been taking since 2013. And I do believe that that is why my hair has not fully turned gray. I have never dyed my hair. So, you know, I have some gray along the sides here. You can see them. But for the most part, and I have some interspersed gray in my hair, for the most part, my hair is still brown. So I know that my mom and my sister and, you know, other family members were completely gray by the time they were my age. So, and my hair is still, you know, pretty full, and, you know, I'm not having problems with my hair. So I do think that the ASEA is definitely helping, plus the supplements that I take, and I try to take care of myself. So, and you can too. Anybody can do this. If you need help, if you want to talk, if you want to meet up, just let me know. I'll make myself available. Just, send me an instant message, or if you have my phone number, you can call me or text me. If you have my email, you can email me, whatever. I'm available. So I'm not a doctor. I just want to disclose I'm not a doctor, healthcare professional. I'm not a holistic or natural doctor, any kind of doctor whatsoever. I've just been through it. So I have a lot of knowledge that has been given to me, that I have done a lot of research. I put a lot of hours and time, months, years, so I've done a lot of experiments. I've tried a lot of different things. I've come to conclusions. I've read books. I've watched videos and lots of articles, whether they are, on PubMed, the CDC, Dr. Day, Dr. Mercola, Dr. Schultz. There's so many different resources that I have, although there's just a few, really, in the scheme of everything that I trust. So I don't trust everybody. I don't trust every holistic website that I see. I don't trust every holistic doctor that I hear of or talk to or watch on videos. So there's certain people that I've been following for years and years, and they have been right on. So those are the people that I trust. And I also pray and I ask God for guidance and wisdom and knowledge. Like I said, He promises to send His Spirit to live in us so that He will guide us into all truth. And that's what I rely on, and I trust Him. So I'm going to end with that, and I thank you for watching, and feel free to pass on this, my Lisa Small Naturals YouTube channel, which is where this is posted. And like I said, any questions, please comment and subscribe to my channel, so when other videos come on, you'll be notified. And there's a little bell that'll notify you, so click on that bell if you would like to get notifications when my new videos come on. I thank you so much, and it was a pleasure. I know I talk a lot. My voice is now tired. So thanks for listening, and be well and be safe. God bless.